Welcome to the Good Reading Magazine podcast. Good Reading is a monthly magazine dedicated to books and reading and aims to help readers discover their next favourite book. You can find out more about the books discussed on today's podcast at goodreadingmagazine.com.au.
The cursor flashes on and off, on and off. Its incessant blinking narrates the painful passing of each second I don't type. A haughty reminder that the Word document, not to mention the rest of the world, is awaiting my words. Calling its bluff, I raise my hands above the keyboard to fire out the most groundbreaking opening to a thriller ever written. When inspiration doesn't strike, I lower them once more. The cursor flickers. At 10:30, I break from my desk to make a cup of tea, surprised it's taken me so long to use this excuse to leave my home office. Usually by this time, I'm 3 cups deep. In the peace of my kitchen, I spot the bread Kamal propped in the toaster for me before he left for work. I see the pill he laid out too. It sits beside the toaster, small and innocuous, but with a presence so loud it might as well be screaming. Picking up the tablet, I roll it between my fingers. I wonder how much strength I'd need to crush it. Not much, I imagine, but a vision of Kamal's hope as I left the doctor's office with my prescription stops me from doing so.
Jess Kitching is an avid reader, writer and binge watcher who splits her time between the UK and Australia. Her 3 previous books have been described as thrillers with heart. Her debut romance, The Life Experiment, was published in 2025. Today I'm talking to Jess Kitching about her latest book, The Secrets of Strangers. Jess, welcome to the Good Reading Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's very exciting to be here with you tonight.
Jess, you're the author of both thrillers and romance. Are these natural companions for you and your writing?
It's quite a strange thing to find myself writing in 2 genres because, if I'm honest, I never really particularly set out to write in either genre. I know I'm a novelist, I'm a writer now. This is my 5th book that's coming out, but above everything, I class myself as a reader. I'm a reader first. I love literature. I have such a passion for just the whole industry. So when I'm writing, it's not really a conscious decision to write a romance or a crime fiction novel. I kind of get an idea and the story comes from there. So my last book, The Life Experiment, was about people that joined an experiment that would tell them the day they will die. And you could write that as a thriller. That could be quite a creepy, kind of compelling novel in that way. But I wanted to explore the family dynamics and the relationship dynamics, so it became a romance novel. So it's always quite interesting. I feel like I write a book that I, as a reader, would want to read. That's kind of my goal, and then whatever genre it lands in is kind of news to me. When Simon and Schuster said, like, "Oh, this is a crime, this is this," I'm like, "Great, thanks for letting me know."
Let's get straight into the book. Janine and Kamal Rai are apparently a happily married couple, settling into their tree change dream, moving from the city of Manchester to the quiet country village of Bamblethorpe. What's brought them here?
In a word, loss. Both had quite fulfilling, happy lives in Manchester, but they suffer some losses. And for Janine particularly, she thinks that, going somewhere new, being in a quiet place where you have absolute peace and serenity around you is going to give her everything she needs and be the fresh start that will make this pain that she feels just disappear. But as anyone who has been through things like that might know, that sometimes isolating yourself actually brings a lot of those feelings you're trying to suppress to the surface, probably 10 times more than if you'd stayed in your busier environment. So this kind of, as you say, reinvention and picture perfect village life that they envisioned having has become actually quite isolating and quite oppressive. And the time that Janine thought she'd have to write and just immerse herself in her creative worlds has actually ended up being Janine having time to just immerse herself in her grief.
And Bamblethorpe doesn't quite measure up to the idea of a peaceful country village full of welcoming and friendly locals. It's much more of a mixed bag, people whose currency seems to be gossip and suspicion. Is that a fair description of Bamblethorpe and its people?
I think so. I think it was quite an interesting thing to come up with a town like this. That aspect of the novel came from the fact that when I have been homesick, I'm originally from the UK, and sometimes when you're on the other side of the world, you get bouts of homesickness. I would watch the Jude Law, Cameron Diaz movie The Holiday with the perfect house and the Kate Winslet house. I would look at that and I would be like, I want to live there so much. It would be perfect. But that kind of got me thinking that actually, we have this idealistic vision of those places and that view of kind of the people in the town. Everybody knows you and everybody knows your secrets. There's a lovely side to that, but there's also quite a sinister side. As you mentioned, kind of it can become quite gossipy, it can become quite toxic if you're not in that clique or in that crowd of people. I don't think that you would have the same experience as someone who was quite embedded in that. So it was quite nice for me to have these moments of homesickness, but play on that with the book where I could create this fictional village that looks perfect and has so much going for it. But as you mentioned, some of the locals aren't quite as welcoming or as embracing as you might want them to be.
Janine starts her day with a cup of tea, a chocolate biscuit or two, a piece of toast she throws in the bin, and an antidepressant that doesn't work and that she doesn't take. None of that seems particularly out of the ordinary for modern day living, but what's up with Janine?
I love that question. I love that phrasing. Janine she's just struggling. There's no other way to say it. She's kind of on the surface this best-selling thriller author that has everything going for her, but Janine wants to be a mother. She wants to be a mother, and that is a massive core of her character. And unfortunately, she's struggled with miscarriage and loss, and all the things that people are trying to push her to do to get better in inverted commas just feel like mountains to her at this point in time. And the idea of kind of moving through that grief seems so big, but it also feels like a way that if she does this, she will leave that, like, the loss is the only thing she has that reminds her of these children that she wanted and that she lost. And so, like you say, not taking the antidepressant, not doing the things that she's been told by her doctor and her friends and her family that will help her, it's almost a kind of a rebellion to just stay in this moment where she's like, I feel this hurt and I want to feel every moment of it, even though, as you find out in the book, it doesn't always have the best consequences that she chooses to quite stubbornly stay in that headspace.
And there seems to be some tension between Janine and Kamal. Are Janine and Kamal a happy couple? Is it that the tree change dream and is not living up to expectations, or is it perhaps something deeper?
I think it's grief. I think the move away from Manchester and their support networks has definitely had an impact. But for anyone who's gone through a grief, especially in these profound ways, I think people feel it so personally. And that's one of the things that I learned about miscarriage and kind of being around friends that have gone through things like that, that their partners have also gone through the same thing, but they might experience it in such different ways. And there's a closeness that Janine and Kamal want to have with each other, but they're also going through and dealing with this grief in their own individual way. So there's absolutely a tension there because you've got two people that love each other and who were once upon a time very happy together, had a well-rounded life, but this thing's happened and it's shaped them, it's chipped them as individuals and as their marriage. So I like to think that there's definitely love there, but you are absolutely right. There is tension because you're watching the person you love struggle. You're watching them not help themselves, but you also don't know how to help them either. And it's kind of like, what line do you draw? Do you just leave them to it? Do you kind of boss them around? Do you try help? And I think that's the line they both tiptoe around each other at the minute with the story.
And I think Janine's sister Beth is having a similar dilemma. She's a little sister. It's a strained relationship there too, characterized by a kind of role reversal. It's Beth who's looking out for Janine rather than the other way around. Janine sees it as a form of surveillance or something when Beth checks up on her. What's the family dynamic?
Yes, Beth's actually one of my favorite characters. I stole one of my friend's names to give her to give her that name. I think I have a sister and we have a beautiful relationship, but I think a sister relationship is like no other because, as you say, there's a role reversal. Beth is Janine's younger sister, but in this moment when Janine is struggling, Beth tries to take on the older sister role, and there is a part of Janine that is like, you don't be the one to look after me, I'm the one who looks after you. And I think that was quite an interesting dynamic to play with as a writer because you set up this character who has this family dynamic, as you mentioned, but with what she's going through in the context of things, it's been flipped on its head. And I think that adds attention to the story because you know Janine is being put into a role that she doesn't want to be in. She doesn't want to be the one that people are calling and checking on. She doesn't want to be the one that people kind of feel they have to tiptoe around. She's like, I'm the big sister. This is my role. And it created some beautiful scenes between her and her sister where they have anyone who has a sister will recognize the kind of arguments where you can say things to your sister that are slightly below the belt and maybe hang up on them, and then after you're like, oh, I hope she still loves me. 2 days gone. Alexa Clarke was undoubtedly the most fascinating thing in the small, white room she had been laid in. The choice to position the 5'9" woman on a single bed gave the impression of her being an overgrown child, one who was simply too big for the space she occupied. To the left of Alexa was a bedside table and a lamp giving off a dim light. Beside that was a long, narrow window. Its curtain was drawn, the hem kissing the window ledge. No light seeped around the edge, a sign that it was night time. Dried blood matted Alexa's blonde hair to her skull and stained her pale skin. The hoodie Alexa had been wearing when she went for her walk was gone, as were her trainers. The rest of her outfit was intact, although mud now caked the knees of her leggings. The tatty nature of Alexa's appearance was made even more shocking by how starkly it contrasted with her surroundings. The pristine room suggested that whoever owned it was neat, verging on obsessive. There was no junk under the bed, no excess furniture cluttering the space, just a bed, some bedding, and a woman named Alexa Clarke.
Let's get on to the mystery. Alexa is missing. Her husband Otis hasn't seen her since Saturday. Now it's Monday, although that kind of behaviour doesn't seem to be out of the ordinary for someone like Alexa. Despite being relatively long-time residents of Bamblethorpe, they seem to exist somehow outside the community of Bamblethorpe. What did they do wrong, or is it the way that Alexa and Otis like it?
Oh, I love this question. I think it's a mix. I think it really is a mix. So Alexa and Otis are, I guess, new money. Otis owns a tech company. He's got like wealth behind him. And when they move to this beautiful, quaint village, they build a house that is just modern. It's just different to kind of the traditional architecture of the place. And that ruffles a few feathers in the village, as it would for a place that's quite set in its ways and loves the way it looks and presents this picture perfect, almost English postcard perception of what life is like there. The village kind of keep them to the side, but I also think Otis and Alexa put themselves there too. They don't want to be involved with, the village fairs and those kind of community events. I think part of them sees some of the gossiping that goes on and just doesn't want any part of it. But of course, when you're in a tight-knit community like that, even if you don't participate in it, there will still be people that kind of find out your secrets or know what's going on, as is what happens with Alexa. As you mentioned, it's not unusual for her to kind of disappear for a few days. Her and Otis are having marital problems, and even though they don't tell anyone in the village, that everybody seems to know.
And as Janine delves deeper into Otis and Alexa's life, Janine realises that Alexa is someone she'd encountered at least 11 months before. And it seems that they have something in common, something revealed in a moment of kindness.
Yeah, it was actually one of my favourite scenes that I wrote, and it wasn't in the original draft that I first sent to my agent, but we were talking about Alexa and Janine's motivation to try find Alexa when she hears that this woman might be missing. It was a question of why. Why would you give up your time to the level that Janine does? So she's obviously in the throes of writer's block. She is in her grief, but it was the next level. And I was talking with my agent. I was like, maybe they should have met just for a small moment, but that meeting was profound. So Alexa and Janine actually meet at kind of like a hospital ultrasound waiting room. And they're both in this place and they've both learned from the other that they have suffered losses. Their fertility journey is just not going the way either of them thought or hoped it would do. And it's this really small moment of connection. But on Janine's lowest day, Alexa is the person that's there who tells her not to give up. And because they have this profound moment that, like you say, is a fleeting moment of kindness, Janine can't let Alexa's question mark of where she is be. She has to know where she is. And I think that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about in the book was how things like fertility struggles or issues or miscarriages or needing IVF, they are actually quite common. They feel quite personal when you're in the middle of it. You feel it's quite isolating, but it's one of those things that it's like an individual yet universal experience. And I think for Janine and Alexa to have this moment where they meet and say, I see you, I understand what you're going through, and it will be okay. That was one of my favorite scenes that I got to put into the book.
Your story reminded me of the metaphor of the Gordian knot. Janine is confronted with a mystery she's compelled to untangle. The author's way might be to delve further into it through research and analytical or critical thinking. But as the legend has it, the Gordian knot requires decisive action to break the cycle of entanglement. Which path will Janine take?
I love this question. We go highbrow. This is good. I think Janine at first she tries to do the research, but I would say she spends very little time on that. Her research is action. She wants to be on the ground. Her research is talking to Otis. Her research is putting herself in this situation and finding out what she can from the person. I feel like as soon as she realizes that she has a connection with Alexa Clarke, she just needs to know that she's okay. That's all her concern is. She doesn't all the villagers are gossiping. Has she left her husband? Has this Janine's thing is I need to know this person is okay. And I think that because it's such a simplistic desire, I think it's action that she takes because the desire is I just need to know she's okay.
Grief, as you've said, is the underlying theme in The Secrets of Strangers. Grief acts as a kind of agent of change. It alters trajectories. But will this mystery and upheaval be the catalyst to unlock Janine's writer's block and her creative spirit?
I hope so. I hope so for her. It's one of those things where there's a few parts of the book, without giving any spoilers away, that it's a bit of a meta novel in the fact that it's quite aware that it's a novel talking about writing. Janine is part of a writers group. She is a writer. There are moments that were really fun as a writer to write where you were almost playing with the reader, where you were a little bit like, if I was an author, I would think if this character wasn't home, it would mean XYZ. So it's almost calling the reader out to be a little bit like, I'm putting clues in here. I know where they are. You know where they are too. So as a writer, I had fun kind of crafting that. But I think also Janine going through this process that's quite similar to the books she's written. Um, I think it would be definitely something that would unlock some kind of creativity in her, maybe a different genre, maybe a different approach to writing, maybe just a little bit of a break and then to come back with it energized. But yeah, I hope for her future it would have unlocked it all.
So, a thriller writer writing a thriller about a writer with writer's block. It's like a kind of three-circle Venn diagram. Does that make the writing process easier for you, or is it a creative loop that keeps running into itself?
I will say this was the most fun I had writing a book. Which sounds silly because it's a thriller, and the first chapter it starts with a very dark prologue of Alexa Clarke walking in a field and getting hit over the head. There's obviously dark themes and violence that I absolutely take seriously when I'm writing, and the idea of kind of the fertility issues and the loss side of things was something that I definitely took seriously when I did it. But the whole idea of, like you say, a writer writing about writing, but with writer's block, there's something fun in that. There's something fun with a thriller where you can go, we all know that I'm leading up to something. We all know that a reveal is coming. This character also knows it because this is their job. So it's almost like you kind of go on a ride, or hopefully take your readers on a ride to get to this point where there's this big culmination at the end. So it was nice to write about a writer and be very aware and very deliberate of what you're going to put in. I always have the idea for the end and the reveal first, so I always knew where I was going and I always knew what was going to happen to Janine. And it was just all the little bits along the way and the in jokes about writing that I could put in that I think made this one quite special and quite fun.
Jess Kitching, such a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for joining me on the Good Reading Podcast.
Thank you so much.
I've been talking to Jess Kitching about her new book, The Secrets of Strangers. It's published by Simon & Schuster, and you can find it at goodreadingmagazine.com.au. My name's Greg Dobbs, and thanks for listening. Subscribe to Good Reading print and online magazine at goodreadingmagazine.com.au.